Your black card is fake.
One card, one laugh, one assumption. That's all it took to detonate a $2 billion partnership and destroy a 92-year-old company's reputation. Nobody in the dealership knew who she was when she walked in. The sales manager saw her skin color and decided she was nobody, a scammer wasting his time. What he didn't see: the $8 billion empire behind her, the 340-vehicle contract in her portfolio, the power to end his career with a single phone call. He thought he was handling a fraud. He was actually being evaluated. And in 18 minutes, he gave her the answer she needed. By the time he Googled her name, it was already over. This is the most expensive laugh in corporate history. The story is just getting interesting. Continue watching to find out what happened next. Maya Lawson's silver Tesla pulled into the Premier Auto Group parking lot at exactly 2:47 p.m. She sat behind the wheel for 20 seconds, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as salespeople moved across the showroom floor like sharks circling prey. One rep practically sprinted toward an older white man in khakis. Another hovered near a couple examining an SUV, nodding enthusiastically at everything they said. She stepped out, her navy blazer catching the afternoon sun. The leather portfolio tucked under her arm contained more than preliminary contracts. It held the future of a partnership that would put 340 vehicles on roads spanning Singapore to Sao Paulo. $2 billion. The largest corporate fleet deal in Premier Auto's 92-year history. Renata, her procurement director, had already done the numbers work. The vehicles checked out. The pricing was competitive. The delivery timelines were aggressive but manageable. Everything looked perfect on paper. But Maya hadn't built an $8 billion company by trusting paper alone. She needed to see how they treated customers when they didn't know who was watching. Real service standards showed up in moments that weren't rehearsed. The automatic doors whispered open. Cool air hit her face, carrying the scent of leather and new rubber. The showroom stretched wide. Vehicles positioned like art installations, each one spotlit and gleaming. A red sports car sat on a rotating platform. Black SUVs lined the far wall. And in the private showcase area behind glass partitions, she could see the high-end models, the ones that required appointments and background checks. 3 salespeople stood clustered near the service desk, laughing about something on a phone screen. A 4th leaned against a desk, scrolling through his tablet. Nobody looked up. Maya walked deeper into the showroom, her heels clicking against polished concrete. She passed a young couple being shown financing options, past a salesman explaining trunk space to a woman with 2 kids. Still nobody approached her. She stopped near a silver sedan, close enough to the main floor that anyone paying attention would notice. She waited. A full minute passed. She pulled out her phone, checked her messages. Cassandra had sent the final contract revisions. Legal was standing by. The board expected her signature by Friday. Everything was ready to move forward. Everything except this, the test that actually mattered. Maya glanced toward the luxury section where a man in a dark suit stood examining something on his computer. His nameplate read, George Cranford, Senior Sales Manager. He looked up, saw her, and for a brief moment their eyes met. She watched his expression shift, not toward interest or customer service, but toward something else entirely. Calculation. Judgment. Dismissal. He grabbed a clipboard and started walking her direction, but his body language said everything. This wasn't the approach of someone greeting a potential client. This was someone preparing to handle a problem. Maya set her phone down and waited. The evaluation had begun. George Cranford had been selling luxury vehicles for 15 years. He could read a buyer in 10 seconds, the way they walked, what they touched, how long they lingered. Real money moved with purpose. Real buyers asked specific questions. This woman standing by the sedan, she had that look. The one that meant she'd wandered in off the street, probably saw the cars through the window and got curious. He'd dealt with this exact situation maybe 200 times. People who couldn't afford an oil change walking through his showroom like they owned the place, wasting time he could be spending on actual commission. Last week it was a kid in a Supreme hoodie asking about a Bentley. Before that, some guy wanting to just sit in a Maserati for Instagram photos. George had learned to handle these situations fast, polite enough to avoid complaints, firm enough to move them along. He checked his watch. He had a real appointment in 40 minutes, a tech executive looking to upgrade his wife's Range Rover. That deal was worth his time. This wasn't. George grabbed his tablet and walked over, keeping his face neutral. The woman had her phone out now, probably texting. She looked professional enough. The blazer was decent, hair done up nice, but that didn't mean anything. People could dress up for a day, rent an outfit, show up to places they had no business being just to feel important for an hour. Can I help you find something? He didn't smile, didn't extend his hand, just stood there with the tablet against his chest like a shield. She looked up from her phone. Her expression was calm. Too calm. That annoyed him more. Yes, I'm interested in your executive fleet program. George almost laughed. Fleet program? He glanced past her, checking if maybe she was with someone else, maybe a husband parking the car. Nobody. Just her. Alone. Fleet program. He repeated, letting the words hang there. That's commercial sales. Different department entirely. I'm aware. Her voice was steady. Professional. Like she'd practiced this. I was told to ask for the luxury fleet manager. According to your website, that's you. George shifted his weight. Something about her tone irritated him. The confidence, the way she stood there like she had every right to his time. He got this sometimes. People who read a few articles online and suddenly thought they understood the business. Yeah, that's me. He tapped his tablet twice against his palm. Fleet sales start at 25 units minimum. Enterprise clients only. We're talking established corporations with verified credit lines and purchasing departments. He looked at her directly now, letting her understand. Maybe you're thinking of our certified pre-owned lot? That's across the street. They handle individual sales, financing options, stuff like that. She didn't move, didn't blink, just kept looking at him with those steady eyes. I'm thinking of 340 vehicles, she said quietly. Mixed luxury and executive class. Delivered across 4 continents. George's jaw tightened. 340 vehicles. George had heard some wild stories before, but this was reaching new levels of absurd. He forced a smile that didn't touch his eyes. Right. 340. He nodded slowly, the way you'd nod at a child explaining their imaginary friend. Well, for a fleet order that size, we'd need to see corporate documentation, proof of funds, authorized purchasing agreements. I have preliminary contracts in my portfolio, Maya said, tapping the leather folder under her arm. But first, I'd like to see the limited edition model in your private showcase. The one listed at $380,000. George's smile vanished. The Phantom Edition. The car they'd received 2 weeks ago with instructions to only show qualified buyers. He'd sold one last month to a hedge fund manager who paid cash without blinking. This woman wanted to see it? You want to see the Phantom Edition? It wasn't a question. It was disbelief wrapped in professional courtesy that was rapidly dissolving. Yes, that's a serious car. George set his tablet down on a nearby desk harder than necessary. For serious buyers, maybe we should start with something more in your... He caught himself, recalibrated. Something more practical? We've got excellent SUVs, sedans, even some hybrid models that are really popular right now. Maya's expression didn't change. I'd like to see the Phantom Edition, please. George checked his watch, made sure she saw him do it. 3:15. His real appointment was at 3:30. He was wasting time on someone who probably couldn't afford the floor mats on that car. Look, he said, dropping some of the professional veneer. That vehicle requires an appointment. We don't just pull it out for, he paused, searching for diplomatic language. For casual viewing. I'm not viewing casually. I'm evaluating your inventory for a corporate partnership. Sure she was. George sighed, loud enough for her to hear. Fine. Let me see what I can do. He walked toward the private showcase, deliberately slow, hoping she'd get the message and leave. She didn't. She followed 3 steps behind, silent except for the click of her heels. He unlocked the glass partition and gestured inside. The Phantom Edition sat under focused lighting, matte black exterior, custom interior, a vehicle built for people who had already bought everything else. This model starts at $380,000, George said, his voice taking on the rehearsed quality of someone explaining something to someone who wouldn't understand. Most buyers finance through our premium lending partners. We've got rates as low as 4.9% for qualified applicants, though approval typically requires credit scores above 750 and verified annual income of at least $500,000. He glanced at her, waiting for reality to set in, waiting for her to make an excuse and leave. Now, the payment on something like this, even with excellent credit, you're looking at around $6,000 a month for 72 months. That's before insurance, which on a vehicle this class runs about $800 monthly. So all in, you're at almost $7,000 a month just to keep it on the road. Maya walked around the car slowly, studying it. She ran her fingers along the hood, checked the wheel rims, opened the driver's door, and looked inside. George crossed his arms, his patience officially gone. Maya closed the driver's door and stepped back from the vehicle. She'd seen enough. The car was immaculate, everything Renata's report had promised. The real question was never about the vehicle. It was about the people selling it. "I'll take it," she said. George blinked. "I'm sorry. I'll purchase this vehicle. Today." For a moment, George just stared at her. Then that condescending smile returned, wider now. "Sure. Absolutely." He pulled out his tablet, tapped it a few times. "Let's just start with a credit application. I'll need your full legal name, social security number, current employment information, annual income." "I'm paying cash," Maya said. George's finger froze mid-tap. "Cash?" "Yes." He let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "Ma'am, this is a $380,000 vehicle. When you say cash, I'm assuming you mean financing with a large down payment. Because even with excellent credit." Maya reached into her portfolio and pulled out a single card. Matte black. No visible numbers. No logos. Just weight and silence. She placed it on the desk between them with a soft click. George stared at it. The American Express Centurion card. The card that supposedly required you to charge at least $250,000 annually just to qualify. The card that came by invitation only. He picked it up, held it to the light. Then he started laughing. It started as a chuckle, then built into something louder. Genuine amusement mixed with disbelief. Other salespeople looked over. A couple examining an SUV turned toward the sound. "Oh, come on." George was shaking his head now, barely able to contain himself. "Really? A black Centurion card? You?" Maya's face remained perfectly neutral. "Lady, I've been in this business 15 years. You can buy these knockoffs on Amazon for $30. They even sell them at novelty shops now." He held it up, showed it to Trenton, a younger salesman who'd wandered over to see what was funny. "Look at this. These scammers are getting bold." Trenton glanced at the card, then at Maya, looking uncomfortable. "George, maybe we should just what? Run a fake card." George tossed it back across the desk. It skidded slightly, stopped inches from the edge. "I've seen this scam before. Someone walks in, tries to look important, pulls out a prop card, hopes we'll process it, and maybe they can grab some information or waste enough of our time that we miss real customers." A small crowd had formed now. The couple from the SUV section. An older salesman named Dennis. Even the receptionist had stood up from her desk to see what the commotion was about. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing," George continued, his voice carrying across the showroom now, "but I've got actual clients with actual money who actually deserve my time." Maya picked up her card, held it between two fingers. Her hand was steady. Her voice was quieter than his, but somehow it cut through everything. "So you're refusing to process my payment?" "I'm refusing to entertain whatever this is." George gestured at her, at the card, at the whole situation. "Look, I don't know if you're running some kind of social media stunt or what, but I have real work to do." George picked the card up again, this time making a show of it. He held it between his thumb and forefinger like it was contaminated, turning it over slowly under the showroom lights. "See, a real Centurion card has a specific weight. Titanium and stainless steel composite, about 14.7 grams. He bounced it in his palm mockingly. This feels like plastic with maybe some metal coating. These Chinese knockoffs are getting better, I'll give them that, but they're still fake." He flicked it back across the desk. It spun once before landing face up in front of Maya. "Look, I don't have time for games." George crossed his arms, his voice getting louder, more authoritative. Playing to the crowd now. I have actual buyers with actual money waiting for appointments. Real clients who don't need to walk in here with props trying to prove something. Trenton shifted uncomfortably. George, maybe we should just... Just what? George cut him off. Waste another 20 minutes on this. Run a card we both know is fake? And then what happens when it declines? She acts surprised, asks to try another card, maybe throws out some excuse about her bank, and suddenly I've lost a half hour I can't get back. Maya hadn't moved. She stood perfectly still, the card on the desk between them. But something had changed in her eyes. Not anger, not embarrassment, something colder. The look of someone making a calculation, reaching a conclusion. You're refusing to process my card, she said. It wasn't a question this time. It was confirmation. A fact being established for the record. George leaned back against the desk, relaxed now, confident. He'd handled this situation. Shut it down before it became a bigger waste of time. I'm refusing to waste my time on street theater. There's a difference. He glanced at the clock on the wall. 3:23. His real appointment would be here in 7 minutes. A real buyer with real money and real intent to purchase. Not whatever this was. Now, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. George pulled his phone from his pocket, held it up so she could see it. You can walk out on your own, or I can call security and they'll escort you out. Your choice, but either way, this conversation is over. Dennis, the older salesman, looked away. Trenton's face had gone pale. The couple from the SUV section whispered something to each other. The receptionist stood frozen at her desk, her hand halfway to her own phone. Maya reached across the desk and picked up her card, slid it back into her portfolio with the same calm precision she'd used to present it. Then she took one step back, pulled out her phone, and began scrolling through her contacts. George watched her, irritated that she wasn't leaving. Did you hear me? I said. I heard you. Maya's fingers stopped scrolling. She tapped a name, held the phone to her ear. George's jaw tightened. What was she doing now? Calling a lawyer? Recording this for some viral video? He'd dealt with that before too. Let her try. He had 15 years of sterling service reviews and a sales record that spoke for itself. The phone rang twice. Someone answered. Cassandra, Maya said, her voice perfectly level. It's Maya. George rolled his eyes. Of course she was calling someone. Probably a friend she'd rehearsed this whole performance with. He'd seen this before. People who needed an audience for their drama, who couldn't just accept reality and move on. He turned to Trenton. Go check on the Hendersons in service. Make sure their vehicle's ready. George, I think maybe. Just go. Maya's voice cut through their conversation, clear and businesslike. Yes, I'm at the Premier Auto location now. The flagship dealership. George glanced at her, barely listening. She was probably complaining to a friend, maybe planning to write a bad review online. He'd handle that if it came up. His sales record would speak for itself. Cancel the partnership, Maya said. All of it. George's hand froze on his tablet. The $2 billion fleet contract with Premier Auto Group. Terminate it immediately. The showroom went silent. Not quiet, silent. The kind of silence that happens when sound suddenly becomes vacuum. George's smirk faltered. He tried to process what he'd just heard. 2 billion? She was saying 2 billion? This was part of the act, had to be. Some kind of bluff too. Notify legal. Maya continued, her voice steady, professional, completely devoid of emotion. Notify procurement. Send the cancellation to their board. And Cassandra, prepare a press statement about why we're ending negotiations with Premier Auto. The color drained from George's face. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Wait, he finally managed. Wait what? Maya held up one finger, not rudely, just indicating she wasn't finished, and continued speaking into her phone. Yes, cite incompatible service standards and a fundamental misalignment in corporate values. Make sure the statement is ready before close of business today. I want their executive team to see it before the weekend. Hold on. George stepped forward. His confident posture had collapsed into something that looked like panic. Hold on, you can't. The contracts are in my portfolio, Maya said into the phone, ignoring him completely. I'm looking at them now. 340 vehicles across 14 countries. Total value $2.1 billion over the 5-year term. Yes. Cancel all of it. Dennis had gone white. Trenton stood frozen halfway to the service department. The couple from the SUV section had their phones out now, recording. George's hands were shaking. Who are you talking to? Who is this? Maya lowered the phone slightly, covered the microphone with her palm. My chief operating officer. We were scheduled to sign the final contracts with your company on Friday. She paused. We were. No. George shook his head rapidly. No. You can't. There's no way you're. One moment, Cassandra. Maya looked directly at George. I'm sorry, you were saying? George's tablet slipped from his hands and clattered on the floor. His mouth worked soundlessly. Around them, other salespeople had stopped what they were doing. Everyone was staring now. Everyone had heard. Actually, Maya said, returning to her call, I need to go. Send me the draft statement in an hour. And Cassandra? Make sure Marcus Thibault's name is on the distribution list. He's their regional director. We sat on a panel together 6 months ago. He should hear this from us before his board does. She ended the call. The silence that followed was deafening. George's hands fumbled for his phone. His fingers were shaking so badly, he nearly dropped it twice before managing to open the browser. He typed her name. Maya. No. Wait. She'd said Maya to whoever was on the phone. Maya what? What was her last name? What's your name? His voice came out strangled. Your full name? Maya slid her phone back into her blazer pocket. You didn't ask for it before. Please. The word cracked. Please, just, what's your name? Maya Lawson. George's fingers moved frantically across the screen. Maya-Lawson. The search results loaded. His eyes went wide. Maya Lawson, CEO and founder, Lawson Tech Solutions. His thumb scrolled. Each line was worse than the last. Net worth, $8.3 billion. Scroll. Forbes 40 under 40. Scroll. Youngest self-made female tech billionaire. Scroll. Lawson Tech Solutions announces expansion into automotive fleet management. The phone slipped from his hands. It hit the floor face up, the screen still glowing with her Wikipedia page, her Forbes profile picture staring up at him. The same face that was standing 3 feet away, watching him realize what he'd done. Oh my God. George's voice was barely a whisper. Oh my God. You're Maya Lawson. Yes. Her tone hadn't changed. Still calm. Still level. I'm Maya Lawson. The woman you just called a scammer. The woman whose card you said was a $30 Amazon knockoff. The woman you threatened to have security remove. I didn't know. George was stammering now, his carefully constructed authority completely shattered. I thought you were. You didn't think, Maya interrupted. Her voice was quieter now, but somehow it cut deeper. You assumed. There's a difference. George bent down, grabbed his phone with shaking hands. The screen showed her standing on a stage at some tech conference, a massive audience behind her. He looked up at her, then back at the phone, like he needed to confirm they were the same person. I made a mistake. His voice was pleading now. A terrible mistake. But you have to understand, we get people in here all the time who. Who what? Maya asked. Who look like me? George's mouth opened. Closed. Nothing came out that wouldn't make this worse. I've been standing in your showroom for 18 minutes, Maya said. Nobody greeted me. Nobody offered assistance until you decided I needed to leave. And when I presented a legitimate form of payment, you laughed at me. Publicly. In front of your staff and your customers. I know. And George's voice broke. I'm so sorry. Please. The contract, the partnership, we can what? Maya picked up her portfolio from the desk where she'd set it. Start over? Pretend this didn't happen? Pretend you didn't show me exactly who you are when you thought no one important was watching. Behind them, Dennis had his phone out, frantically typing. Probably texting management. Probably praying someone above George's pay grade could fix this. They couldn't. The showroom doors burst open with enough force to make everyone turn. Marcus Thibault came through at nearly a run, his phone still in his hand, his face flushed red. He'd been in a meeting across town when Dennis's emergency text came through. Just 3 words. Maya Lawson. Here. Crisis. Marcus had left his coffee on the conference table and broken every speed limit getting here. He stopped 5 feet inside the showroom, his eyes scanning frantically until they landed on Maya. His expression went through 3 distinct phases in less than 2 seconds: confusion, recognition, and absolute horror. "Ms. Lawson." He was breathing hard. "Ms. Lawson, I just got a message that." He looked around the showroom, at George standing there pale and trembling, at the gathered crowd, at the Phantom Edition still sitting in the private showcase behind them. "I don't understand. The contract was supposed to be signed Friday. Everything was finalized." Was, Maya said simply. That single word hit Marcus like a physical blow. His face went from red to white in an instant. His voice came out strangled. "What do you mean was?" "The contract was supposed to be signed Friday," Maya confirmed. "It's not anymore." George made a sound, something between a whimper and an attempt at words. He stepped forward, hands raised like he was approaching a wild animal. "Mr. Tebow, I can explain. There was a misunderstanding. I didn't realize who she was." Marcus turned to look at George. Just looked at him. Didn't say a word. But the look itself could have shattered glass, could have cut through steel, could have made a grown man reconsider every choice that led to this moment. George stopped talking immediately. He actually took a step backward. "You didn't realize," Marcus repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. "You didn't realize that the woman standing in our showroom, asking about our executive fleet program, might be the CEO we've been courting for 8 months? The CEO whose signature was worth $2 billion. I thought," George tried. "Don't." Marcus held up one hand, his eyes never leaving George's face. "Don't say another word. Not one word." The doors opened again. Ellen Pritchard, VP of Sales, rushed in with 2 other executives Maya didn't recognize. Ellen saw Maya, and her expression collapsed. She'd been in every negotiation meeting. She'd personally walked Maya through the fleet specifications. She knew exactly what this meant. "Oh no." Ellen's voice was barely audible. "Oh no, please tell me. Your senior sales manager just accused Ms. Lawson of carrying a counterfeit credit card," Marcus said, his voice tight and controlled. He laughed at her, publicly, then threatened to call security to remove her from the building. One of the executives behind Ellen, a young guy in an expensive suit, actually gasped. The other one, an older woman, closed her eyes and lowered her head like she was in physical pain. Ellen turned to George. "You did what?" "I didn't know." George's voice cracked. "She didn't say who she was. She just walked in and you assumed," Maya finished for him. "You looked at me, made a judgment in 10 seconds, and decided I was wasting your time." $2 billion, the older woman executive said quietly. She wasn't talking to anyone in particular, just stating a fact to the universe. 2.1 billion over 5 years. 340 vehicles. Our largest fleet contract in company history. She looked at George. "Gone." Marcus pulled out his phone, typed something rapidly, then looked back at Maya. "Ms. Lawson, please. If we could speak privately, if there's any way to." "To what?" Maya's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath now. "To apologize? To explain this away? To promise me it won't happen again?" "Yes." Marcus was pleading now, something Maya suspected didn't happen often. "All of that. Any of that. Name your terms. We'll terminate George immediately. We'll implement mandatory training for every employee. You'll do all of that anyway," Maya said. "Because you should have done it already. But that doesn't change what happened here. It doesn't change the fact that your senior sales manager, the person you trusted to represent your company, saw a black woman and immediately assumed she was running a scam." The words hung in the air. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Maya continued, her voice measured and precise. "I didn't come here anonymously. I came here as myself, dressed professionally, carrying contracts worth billions, and I was treated like a criminal. Not because of anything I did. Because of what I looked like." Ellen stepped forward. "Ms. Lawson, I understand your anger. This is inexcusable. But please, 8 months of negotiations, hundreds of hours of work from both our teams." "All of which," Maya interrupted, "apparently meant nothing the moment I walked through your door and your senior sales manager decided I didn't belong here." Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face somehow got even paler. "The board is calling," he said quietly. "Someone already told them." Good, Maya thought. Let them know now. Let them feel this in real time. Maya looked at the assembled executives, Marcus, Ellen, the two others whose names she didn't know, and George standing off to the side like he was waiting for someone to tell him this was all a bad dream he could wake up from. "I want to be very clear about something," Maya said, her voice carrying across the showroom that had gone completely silent. Even the couple who'd been recording had lowered their phones, transfixed. This wasn't a test. I didn't come here planning to see what would happen if someone mistreated me. I came here to evaluate your service standards before my company committed $2 billion to a partnership. She let that sink in for a moment. And I got my answer. Maya turned to look directly at George. You didn't just cost your company a contract. You showed them exactly who they employed. You showed them what happens when nobody important is watching. When you think you can treat people however you want because you've decided they don't matter. George opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I've built my company from a dorm room to $8 billion in valuation, Maya continued. I've sat across from venture capitalists who told me to my face that women don't understand tech. I've had investors ask to speak to the real CEO while I was sitting right there. I've walked into meetings where people assumed I was someone's assistant, someone's secretary, anyone but the person who built the entire company they wanted to buy into. Marcus was staring at the floor. Ellen had her hand over her mouth. So I've learned to evaluate companies not by what they say in boardrooms or what they promise in contracts, but by how they treat people when they think those people don't have power. Because that's when you see the truth. That's when you see who they really are. Maya picked up her portfolio from the desk. George saw a black woman walk into his showroom and decided within seconds that I was a waste of his time. Not because of anything I said or did, because of what I looked like. And when I presented legitimate payment for a $380,000 vehicle, he laughed at me, called my card a $30 Amazon knockoff, threatened to have security remove me. She turned to Marcus. You asked what your terms would be, what you could do to fix this. But here's what you're not understanding. This isn't fixable. Because I didn't see your training program fail. I didn't see your policies break down. I saw your senior sales manager's actual character, his actual beliefs, the things he thinks when he believes nobody important is watching. Ms. Lawson, Marcus tried. I'm not finished. Maya's voice was quiet, but everyone heard every word. My company was prepared to purchase 340 vehicles from you. Luxury sedans for our executive team, SUVs for our operations managers, electric vehicles for our sustainability initiative. We were going to be a showcase partnership, something you could point to in every pitch, every presentation, every quarterly report. She paused, looked around at all of them. Instead, you're going to be a case study, a cautionary tale about what happens when companies don't pay attention to who they put in customer-facing roles. When they assume that sales skills matter more than basic human decency and professional respect. Ellen stepped forward, her hands clasped like she was praying. Please, give us a chance to make this right. We'll fire George immediately. We'll implement new training. You'll do all of that because you have to, Maya said. Because when this story gets out, and it will get out, because I'm not going to hide it, you'll have to show you took action. But you won't be doing it because you believe it's right. You'll be doing it because it became expensive not to. She walked toward the exit. Her heels clicked against the polished concrete floor, each step echoing in the silence. George suddenly lunged forward, desperation overriding whatever sense he had left. Please, I have a family. I have a mortgage. I've worked here for 15 years. I made a mistake, one mistake, and you're going to ruin my entire life. Maya stopped, turned back, looked at him with those same calm, steady eyes. One mistake, she repeated. Is that what you think this was? One bad moment? One slip in judgment? George nodded frantically. Yes, exactly. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has bad days. No, Maya said. This wasn't a mistake. A mistake is when you add numbers wrong or send an email to the wrong person. What you did was reveal who you are, how you think, what you believe about people who look like me. That's not a mistake. That's character. She took a step closer to him. You looked at me and saw someone who didn't deserve your time or your respect. You saw someone you could mock publicly, someone you could threaten, someone you could dismiss. And you did all of that because you were absolutely certain I had no power, no status, no ability to affect your life in any meaningful way. George was crying now, actual tears running down his face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You're sorry you were wrong, Maya said. You're sorry I turned out to be someone who mattered. But you're not sorry for how you treated me. Because if I had been exactly who you assumed I was, just some random black woman who wandered in off the street, you'd feel completely justified in everything you did. Wouldn't you? George didn't answer. He didn't need to. They both knew the truth. Maya turned to Marcus. Your board is waiting for your call. I'd suggest you start thinking about how you're going to explain this. Because they're going to want to know how a 15-year employee, someone you trusted enough to make him senior sales manager, could cost them $2 billion in less than 20 minutes. Marcus looked like he might be sick. Ms. Lawson, save it. Maya's voice wasn't angry. It was tired. The exhaustion of having this same conversation, facing this same prejudice, over and over again in different forms. Just save it. She walked through the automatic doors. They whispered closed behind her. The parking lot was bathed in late afternoon sun. Her Tesla sat exactly where she'd left it 33 minutes ago. A black Model S Plaid she'd purchased 18 months ago from a competitor's dealership where the sales manager had treated her with respect, processed her payment without question, and thanked her for her business. Maya unlocked the car, set her portfolio on the passenger seat, and sat behind the wheel. Through the showroom windows, she could see the chaos she'd left behind. Security guards were approaching George. Marcus had his phone pressed to his ear, his free hand covering his face. Ellen was gesturing frantically at the other executives. Customers were still recording on their phones. The whole scene was unraveling in real time. Maya started the engine. The electric motor hummed to life, silent and efficient. She pulled out of the parking space, drove past the Premier Auto Group sign with its proud 90-plus years of excellence tagline, and merged into traffic. Behind her, careers were ending. Emergency meetings were being called. Legal teams were being briefed. Public relations experts were being consulted. A 92-year-old company was learning a lesson that would cost them billions and stain their reputation for years. And Maya Lawson drove home, knowing she'd done exactly what she came to do. She'd evaluated their service standards. She'd seen who they really were. And she'd made her decision. Maya's phone buzzed at a red light. A text from Cassandra. Press statement drafted. Legal approved. Ready when you are. She typed back. Send it. Within minutes, the story would hit Bloomberg, Reuters, the Wall Street Journal. Tech blogs would pick it up within the hour. By tomorrow morning, every major business publication would be running some version of the headline. Billionaire CEO cancels $2 billion deal after racial discrimination at luxury dealership. George Cranford's 15-year career ended that Tuesday afternoon. Premier Auto Group's stock dropped 12% over the next week. Marcus Thibault spent 3 months in emergency meetings trying to salvage other partnerships before eventually resigning. The company implemented mandatory bias training, hired a diversity consultant, and issued public apologies. But the damage was done, not just financially, but reputationally. Because Maya was right, this became a case study. Business schools taught it. Corporate training programs referenced it. And every salesperson in every luxury showroom across the country learned one very expensive lesson. Never assume you know someone's worth by looking at them. Some mistakes cost careers. Some cost millions. This one cost billions. And it all started with one laugh. One assumption. One moment when someone decided that a black woman couldn't possibly belong. If this story made you think twice about assumptions and the real cost of prejudice, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you real stories about power, justice, and the moments that change everything. Drop a comment below. Have you ever been underestimated because of how you looked? Let's talk about it. New stories every day. Don't miss the next one.